Hi, Daniel.
Good morning. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. How you
How are
been?
you?
I'm good, thank God. How is your 2025 starting?
It was fine. I had a nice day yesterday. I didn't. I did stay up just to make sure that we saw it in, but yeah, I had to live through the news last night, which wasn't fun. But yes, no, we're doing okay. It rained a lot, so it's nice to have sunshine today, and it's nice to see you.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're healthy and well.
Thank you. It was also very windy, but yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so let's go straight to it. Like, I mean, was it yesterday? Yesterday, yeah. Um, Unfortunately, the US,
Mm.
there was a terrorist attack in the US by uh, by a guy who's American, Muslim American. And if you see his videos, by the way, YouTube, he was a real estate agent or something like that. And you see just your everyday Joe, he's like and that's what I always say, like, evil is not, doesn't come in different forms. It's your it can, unfortunately, we build, like, in Judaism, we have this um, believes that we have a little bit of every animal in us. The question is, what do you want to bring out of it, to the world? So this evilness, like, it's just a normal person who chose to do wrong. It's not because he was psychotic. It's not because it's a whole Torah, it's a whole tradition, it's a whole agenda of harming in the name of jihad. So,
So yeah, I agree with you. The barbarian is always right next door.
yeah.
He's never far away. The information coming out so far, and I'm guessing a lot more information is going to come out in the succeeding days as they go forward, is that he was in the military
Yes.
originally, um, and that he's been radicalized in some way because they believe he was not acting alone. And in his van or somewhere around, they found an ISIS state flag.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
obviously, this is a man who had an axe to grind, but he also had skills.
Mhm.
And you know, when you teach people to kill, to be prepared to kill for several years, and then put them out on the streets, they don't all automatically become wonderfully surrounded citizens of the country. They have a problem. They have to try and reintegrate themselves back into their society.
Yeah.
Back in the time of Vietnam, it was very interesting. They found that although they gave the soldiers drugs to cope with frontline work in Vietnam, the ones who came back, who had family, who had that warmth, who had that connection, integrated fairly okay, no problems. It was the ones who were not able to engage with wives and children, mothers and fathers, who didn't have that support group, who became the ones who ended up running around in forests, not able to integrate, did terrible things, and had really deep psychological problems. And obviously, this man has deep psychological problems,
Yeah,
and
that's
they
where we
focus.
disagree, but go ahead.
Okay, um, but he was easy to radicalize. He was very easy to tell that the world is made up of good and bad, and he was on the side of the good, and the bad had to be killed. Uh, Most of the time, educated people would say, "Yeah, there are people I disagree with, but I'm not going to kill them.
Well,
I'm going to argue."
we disagree on that as well. Like, there are
Okay.
two things where we disagree. One is I don't like finding excuses for people evil. That's where I started what I said, because you don't have to have any excuse to be hatredful in your heart into the extent that you actually go and execute your plan. You don't have to be, mad, or you don't have to have any psychological issues or psychiatric issues. You just need to be hateful and spiteful and feel that you're the one who is coming to, in their eyes, to fix the world from what they call evil, which is the Western world, right? Because at the end of the day, what they want to do is to have the Sharia law also in the US. It's not different, like, than anything else. So any terrorists that come and harm, they come in, and there are many of them. You can't say that all of them has, like, mental issues. You can find maybe one or two or three, like maybe 0.5% of them, but all of them are just with a purpose, with agenda. You see it in the videos that if we go to Israel, the Hamas is releasing, little kids, or I think it was the Houthim, like the guy, the Houthim from Yemen, this like kid that barely walks, they gets like an RPG or mini RPG, and they let him like shoot it. And then he shoots it, and then he says, Allah Akbar, and so it's something that they teach the kids from a very young age. You see, like, also games that they have, like a missiles game that they have, and you have like that. And I remember, like, also the soldiers were saying it after it was in the very early stages of this war in Gaza. And the soldiers were saying, like, it's in every house in Gaza. You see those like little Jewish puppets that they play with, and then you have a sword for the other one, and then they kill it. Like that's how they teach them. That's the whole being is about death. That's the whole being. So when your whole being and you brought up in a way that death is more sacred than life, then you will aim to die as young as you can. So and with a big bang, right? So I disagree with the idea of having any psychological issues to have to do with that. I do agree with what you said about like military people that has to it's hard because in military it's all in orders, like you have to do what your superior says, and if you're a superior and if you're there for a long time you're probably a superior, because I think you've been there for maybe 20 years if I'm not mistaken. So like he had a position and he had soldiers underneath him that he just had to say something and then they would do. Um, and yes, the army, any kind of army, should have a plan to integrate in society afterwards. And it makes sense what you said also about like people who has families would like it would be very easy, like it would be easier for them to integrate than if you don't have a family. And those then like it's a standalone man that has to like find himself in the wood. But it doesn't give any excuse to do what they do. At the end of the day, they chose to go actively to those sites to look. You understand? You can also choose to, I don't know, to go and improve yourself, not go down the rabbit hole. So that's what I'm saying. I don't buy it. I understand like that a lot of times, cults, let's take for example, cults that how do they get people into their cult? They look at them like they see that they're vulnerable and that they're at their weakest point in their life, and then that's how they draw them into their cult. I agree with that. But there's a difference between actively going and looking for something and and then go off and doing it. Then at the end of the day, it's a person decision. And they're doing it
Mm.
because of what they believe to be the right thing. And the US, unfortunately, everywhere in the world is just not it's not just in the US, but in New Orleans, people just going and having like, a party or enjoying their first new day in the New Year's. It's just, I don't know, there is no excuse, and I don't give any discount to anyone on those kind of things. I don't like to go into those things like, yeah, he had like this and that. No, he chose to do this.
So I don't think I was trying to say that I would mitigate the action or the decision of the action that they were taking because they had some psychological distress. I do agree with you, it is a choice. But I do think that it's very easy to make human beings hate. It's not something that's difficult. You find it all over the world. If we went around the world and we disassociated ourselves from the Arab-Israeli conflict, you would find every country has people they dislike,
Yeah.
and another tribe they dislike, and
Yeah.
this and they will kill each other. I remember, oh, it was a horrible thing watching Bosnia and watching it just implode. And they went to a Serbian, and the Serbian, he was probably about 60-ish, maybe 50-ish, and they said, What do you think of your soldiers raping Bosnian women?" And he just looked at, now whether he was making it up or whether he was just being funny, but he looked at the interviewer and he said, "There is no way a good Serbian man would touch one of those women." I mean, the distaste, the
Yeah.
hatred in him for that. And you just looked at him and said, where's he coming from? Why could he believe that the Serbian men would be any better than any other man on the face of the earth, given the chance and given the war and given what men do in war? So people can believe themselves to be paragons of virtue
Yeah.
whilst they're doing the most vile things, and they are supported in doing those vile things. So I agree, absolutely agree with you that I'm not looking for him to have a psychiatrist or any of them to go into psychiatry and come out change people. They won't. They don't change. Look at Sinwar. All those years in a jail, all those talking to the Jewish people,
We
reading the
saved him. We
yeah,
freaking saved him.
yeah,
He was about, he
absolutely,
was dead, a dead man.
absolutely.
He was about a dead man. And the doctor that he did his procedure, for those who don't know, like just say that he was like in a very late stage of cancer. I think it was brain cancer. And before he went into certainly because he was jailed in Israel, so you have to treat him. I don't know why. Um, he told the surgeon the person who did his surgery he told him that you will save me and I will kill you, like like you're saving me to kill you guys.
Mm.
And it's just like they have no, again, they have no mercy, they have no, just it's, I don't know, for it feels to me like it's unprecedented. Like I know that a lot of, I mean, yes, we have the Inquisition, we have the Holocaust, we have a lot, like, unfortunately, human beings have a long history of bloodshedding. Um, this this seemed to me like it's a
If you
whole.
look at the history of the Crusades, and if you look at the history of the Muslims invading North Africa, the battles with Iran, as Persia as was in the 7th century, this butchery is not unusual. And this devolving to this kind of butchery, I mean, they will hack dead bodies to pieces in these battles,
Well, they have
uh,
done in this
out of pure hatred.
7.
Pure hatred, and they do exactly. So when people say that a lot of these men are just coming straight out of the medieval period, that's why they're saying it. Their brainwashing, their hatred, their worldview, that as you mentioned earlier, I think in our discussion before we started this, the worldview of the 100-year march to taking over the West, how you do it, what you're doing it for. The worldview is that Islam must be the only religion in the world.
Yeah.
And
The
they believe it.
controlling religion, but yeah, like it's
Yeah,
just
they believe, oh, they will want it to be the only religion. They
yeah.
might let a few people live on a mountain somewhere, but basically they hate them.
Yeah.
And they certainly, these people, ISIS people. Um, and then you have this whole constituency of people who support them in their hearts, but they won't put themselves out there. Um, so when a like Sudan was divided 25 years ago, and North Sudan became a Muslim enclave of 45 million people or so. There may have been people amongst those people who didn't want to divide Sudan, didn't mind that there were 10 million Christians living in Sudan, and they didn't need the country divided in half, but the religious wanted it done, so the others just went along with it. They didn't fight for the other side, and they didn't fight for a political belief that we all work together. And this is also a deep problem in the wider Muslim society, that there aren't enough voices coming through who are fighting these people and asking for a reformation of the religious belief that Islam must be the only religion in the world, and that once a country is Islamic, it is Islamic forever, and we won't give anybody a chance to have any kind of freedom of their own. Look at Turkey and the Kurds.
Yeah.
Turkey is now getting ready to invade Syria because it doesn't want Kurdistan to have an independent country. Why not? They're an independent people. They've been around for thousands of years, just like anybody else. If they want self-determination, what is wrong with it? Well, what is wrong with it as far as the general political feeling is, they're taking a bit of our country away. And our country is autonomous, and no one can have anything to do any part of our country. This kind of prejudice, this kind of patriotism, this misguided way in which you do not allow the other person a voice is very, very deep in Islam.
Yeah.
It used to be very deep in Christianity, but it is very,
Yeah.
very deep. And these
But
people, sorry, carry on.
no, but the difference between now and then is today the world is in its best time ever. Like, people are not, most of the people are, well, it's pretty, like, we have everything, access to everything. You have technology, you have food. Yes, of course, there are countries that still, like, are not as developed. But if you take, like, it's relatively, again, it's been peaceful in certain areas, right? Like if you take US, Europe, parts of Africa, parts of Asia, that it's not a war everywhere. That's what I'm trying to say. It's mostly peaceful. So it's just a different, it's a different time because again, usually war starts where, let's say if you take, it starts where there's lack of something. And most of the time is food, the economy is bad, etc. That's why I'm saying it's different because like the Arab countries, if you just take the Emirates, Saudi Arabia, like most of the Arab countries are very rich. I'm not talking about Egypt or, Syria, Lebanon. I mean, did you see, by the way, did you see Assad's son car collections? Did you
Yes,
see it? That
I
was
did.
insane. It was like valued in $1 billion.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just, it tells you like there's a lot of money there that could be just given to the people. And like, it's just insane. And that's just his son's cars. Um, so what I'm trying to say is like there is money there. So they shouldn't be lacking anything unless they don't have such a good like leadership, and that's something else. But at the end of the day, everybody has access to everything. That's what I mean. Can you hear me, Danielle? You froze. Danielle, you froze. Now I can see you.
Okay, sorry, it just froze. Don't know. Yasser Arafat died with 3 billion in the bank, and all those men in Kuwait or wherever they are, Qatar,
Qatar,
uh,
Qatar, Qatar is,
they're all billionaires
yes.
sitting in their penthouses, telling people to kill Jews.
Yep.
I mean,
I mean,
it's sickening. It is
yeah,
sickening.
if we're going back to what you mentioned about okay, so Brigitte Gabriel is a former Lebanese, she's a journalist, she's an author, she's a very um, outspoken person about the Islamic issue as far as jihad issue. Okay. She was talking and mentioning the 100-year plan that they have and how it's like and the institutions that they said that they're going to build um, in order to implement their plan, which is to control the entire world. Okay, I mean, but that 100-year plan was specific for the U.S. So which each institution is very interesting, but two ones that I think everybody can, you know, know about is the first one is um, the the one that provided advice to Barack Obama about
Hmm.
Islam issues, okay, or matters, um, which is again all based on the 100-year plan of controlling America, the US,
Mm.
North America. And the second one is the MSA, which is the Muslim Student Association. And that's why we see what we see.
Mm.
So everything is funneled through Qatar, through Iran, through everybody who has money, and vice versa. Also, a lot of people actually collect money under the umbrella of that plan and send it back to the Middle East or wherever it is to commit like terrorist acts. So it's all out there. It's not like what we're saying, it's not a new information.
Mm.
It's something that is known, it's out in the open. It's just people are like, oh no, I want to close my eyes and I don't want to like, have anything to do with it.
There was that lady gave a talk. She was part of a panel talk that went viral on the internet because a Muslim girl stood up and asked why the Muslim voice wasn't represented on the panel. And she said, "You stood up, and you're an American citizen, but you've identified yourself as a Muslim woman." And she said, "Let me tell you about how countries fall." She said that, going back briefly to what I was just saying about the majority, she said that we know that the radicalized Islamic constituency is probably 10 to 15% on our best guess of the Muslim people. So that's like 150 million plus people. And she said they come in. She said when the Nazis took over Germany, not everybody in Germany was a Nazi, but the minority that took over made the majority irrelevant.
Exactly.
And then she went through a series of the minorities taking over countries, and she said that just makes the majority irrelevant. So you have to fight the minority with everything you've got because the majority of Muslims will just be led by the nose.
Yeah.
And so she talked about this. I think 100 years is underestimate because it took them 500 years to take North Sudan. But nonetheless, they
This
are
is,
on the march.
yeah,
They are.
that's a very sophisticated plan. It's not just to sit and tell one person to do this. They have a very detailed plan and
Mm.
they're succeeding so far.
Well, I think what they've done so far is they have succeeded in radicalizing.
In the mainstream, in the eyes of
Yeah,
every person,
yes,
almost,
yeah. I
when you
think
have the minds and the hearts of the people, you're winning.
the media is completely compromised. I think the university, the tutors who are teaching people that Israel shouldn't
They are
exist.
funded by Qatar or
Yeah,
whoever other like terrorist
I think it's
providing
but
countries are funding
but
those schools and faculties, and they choose their professors or choose
they
who
do
not to. So that's how
they
it's
do.
like that's how the machine works.
When I was in Israel in January last year, volunteering, I met a man who taught at the naval academies, lectured, and I said to him that you really were taken. Why were you taken by surprise on 2001? What was it? He said we had no idea what we were facing. Absolutely no idea. It came completely out of the blue. We'd been asleep. We had a lot to learn, but we have learned. So although the students are out there, and although these tutors are saying things, and although the media is pumping out stuff all the time that is wrong-headed, there are lots of organizations and lots of people out there right across the West who have got their finger on the pulse, who are advising their leaders as best they can about what's going on, and they are continuously trying to look for ways to circumvent what these people are trying to do, whilst maintaining their democratic principles. And this is the key that a lot of people have honed in on. How does a liberal thinking, leaning country deal with people who want to use their freedoms to destroy them? It's not an easy circle to actually come across to say we can't lock down all our citizens. So how do we deal with these people? The guys in New Orleans, when they were talking, said, "Look, we had bollards up until recently in that very area. And if those bollards had still been there, that truck could not have done what it did. He could not have got through.
Mhm.
But sometimes you make a decision, they see a loophole, they're ready to go, and they take out 50, at the moment, 15 people and traumatize dozens more. And it is really difficult to stop these things happening. And it is really difficult to deal with so much money funding so many lecturers on so many campuses to try and sort out a counter argument. But part of the reason we started doing this is because we felt that our response as people who are pro Israel was not strong enough
Five.
in the media.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were trying to do our bit to say, look, we have to put forward the facts.
Yeah.
This hospital thing that Israel engaged in 2 days ago when it arrested 240 Hamas, all over the media, they were saying the last functioning hospital in Gaza.
Ah,
There are, and then I went online. I had a look. There are 10 functioning hospitals in Gaza. The Israelis had been monitoring what was going on in this hospital for 3 weeks. So that means that there were some people in the West and in Western organizations who knew what the Israelis were doing. They knew that the doctor that they arrested is actually a colonel in the Hamas organization. Everybody, the United Nations came out and said, you must release him. He's a doctor. And
yes, he's
it
a
is,
doctor in terrorist in
yes, he's a doctor
terrorizing.
and terrorist. Because what is, let's go back to what you just said. He's a doctor, but he's let a different beast out in
Mhm.
himself. He's made the choice. Right?
Mhm.
So just because he's a doctor who can heal some people doesn't mean doesn't want to kill hundreds of others, and he does.
Yeah.
So the the way in which the fight has to continue, it's chaotic, it's messy, but it has to continue across the board, and
Yeah.
we will be on the back foot sometimes.
Yes, yes. And I actually believe that um you're starting to see some awakening. Like you have the woke and you have the awakening. So I would call it the awakening of people like sobering up, like they're finally understanding or realizing that something is wrong and it needs to be fixed. So when you have the support of the crowd, then you are able to move forward and do whatever you want to do. Of course, in democratic places like the UK, the US, or different countries in Europe or in the world, it's hopefully in Canada soon. Oh my God. Uh, Trudeau is like, it's a whole nother,
It will never
thing.
be a simple
But
process of going forward all the time in slow steps. There will be times when you go backwards.
Uh,
But the
well, it's either
mistake,
gonna be a war or you're gonna do it in a certain way. I think in some places in the world there might be a war
oh,
because
certainly. Yes. Yeah, I
it's just
agree.
like inevitable. Like it's just
Yeah. Well,
they're too much. They're too big. They're too big. They're too rooted. They've been in those countries for too long now. It's not like I have anything, against the normal or normal everyday Muslim or whatever. It's not about that. It's about the ideology that is killing people.
Hmm. Yeah. And we're always at the apex. We're always at the point. We're always the vanguard, aren't we? They always come for us first.
Yeah.
But people have been saying, yeah, the Jewish people are the canaries. Well, they come for them first, but they're coming for us next. And
Yeah.
more people are saying this. Um, it seems, though, that a lot of what's being said like this is coming from the right of the political thinking, like Douglas Murray, and none of it coming from the left.
Well, in the US, you do see, well, again, I'm talking about the US because the US is the trend leader. Okay. Um, in the US, you see a lot of who used to be lefties that are not lefties or liberals or whatever anymore, or changed. Not because they have changed their views, but because they understand that we're at a point where it's just becoming ridiculous and we're becoming too and we're getting too extreme. So you have to take different measures and just be on the other side for the time being until everything goes back to normal, and then you are able to go and like do your liberal thing, but again, with hopefully with boundaries. So I hope that the other countries will see it as well. And Trump is a great player, like in this. So we'll see. Let's see. I hope in the UK. I mean, we have 4 more years of this. You know. And did you hear what Trump said about the mayor of London? I guess the mayor of London said something about Trump, but Trump said that he needs to worry about like how Betty did to the Londoners rather than talk about us. He has a lot of time to fix. So if he can fix it, that would be great.
That's-
And yeah, it's an
yeah,
unsafe city in to some degree. Like I mean,
oh,
if you look at
of course.
we talked about it. Like well, as a Jew, like as a practicing Jew, you don't always feel safe. Not you, I'm just saying in general. You don't always feel safe to put your yarmulke on in the city center.
This has been true now for at least 3 years.
Yeah. And you know what? We were in Portugal for the holidays, and I feel like Portugal is the only European country that I've been to that it was Jewish friendly. You could wear your yarmulke everywhere. Nobody even knows, what it is or even will notice it. It's such a refreshing feeling because I can't remember being in a European country and feeling like this. Back in the days, like maybe 10 years or 15 years earlier, yes. But in the past, as I said, 10 years, I haven't felt that. Like it's always like, there's always a feel of a threat. So Portugal is so much different in that sense. Um, but anyways, you want to say something, for the end of this video?
Well, yeah, I was going to carry on from there. When I was at college in 1980, an Orthodox boy was a teacher, and I asked him if he wore his yarmulke at school, and he said, "What, you want me to get lynched?"
Oh,
That's 1980,
wow.
okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I was going to say that one of the problems we face is that we've brought in a lot of immigrants who were running, who were refugees, and they came into Europe and they brought their hatred with them.
Okay. I think we're about to finish.
Okay.
All right.
Lovely talking to you as
Lovely
ever.
talking to you too.
See you during the week.
Bye bye.
Shalom.
Shalom. Bye.